stuck in my ways in my Versace shades. I'm Mr. Gas, Gutta and Saved. Stuck in my ways in my Versace shades. I'm Mr. Gas, Gutta and Saved.
Check. Spiritually, I'm Christ-like. Lyrically, feel like money made on fight night. Me and Meek out slaying duo from Fright Night. Like my dad, I need stone pads when I write. Gas, different pedigree, legibly with a legend. Filled with a spirit, my flow is so heavenly. Respectfully, I'm out of this world, they can't measure me. Christ, Holy Ghost, and I, the perfect recipe. Salt of this world, I'm never bitter. Versace shades, my ways is so scripture. It pays to know God, our lives are so richer. My vibes like Richard Pryor and Harlem Nights who's iller. Mike Glove and Thriller, Max Slugs and Spiller. The chef done gone digital, Ray Kwan and RZA. I'm napalm but lyrical, stay calm, I'm biblical. They get they fake on, my cake on residual. Gas, labels can't afford me, no. Just my release got is that geese that increase my dough. My like a peace crisis, that peace, I keep a peace for show. On this wave, I'm with the stick, they know how I roll. I'm talking Christian, all with the hammer. Bars like the slammer, yeah, I ball like the answer. Far as these rappers go, I feel they all been tampered. I'm one of the last standing, cause God is my standard. I know they can't stand it. Roof is panoramic on that whip. I'm gutted and saved, means I'm a preacher with a twist. I'm stuck in my ways like my GPS in the glitch. I'm on the mountain and he know what I pitch. I was born to do this. A-Ride with the K-High. Every day I praise God's laws I play by. I get it, rapping CEO be my day job. Far as rap, I act sim like Shade 45. Gas.
Hey Saints, ready to elevate your style? Pre-order your faith around and find out sweatshirt or hoodie today and score a limited edition Saint Star t-shirt for just $10. Yes, a limited edition Saint Star t-shirt for just $10 along with your purchase of your faith around and find out vintage Saint sweatshirt or hoodie. Don't miss out. Grab yours now at gasmerch.com or click the link in the description area.
You are now tuned into Gutta and Saved.
I'm Mr. Gas now. That stands for Gutta and Saved. I'm doing God's work now.
What's going on, y'all? It's your boy St. Reese. Back at it with another one, man. This is the Gutta and Saint podcast, man. Man, I want to do a reaction video to my brother Cory Minor, whom I have respect for, who I also believe is one of YouTube thorough content creators here in these YouTube streets. I have much respect for him, but I believe he's being disingenuous about this discussion we're about to talk on about, the effects of what the white church have done to the black church. Now, I don't believe in this whole white church, black church dynamic. I don't. But this is the categories that they have put us in. And we actually see that in Bible history. We have the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the scribes. We have the Sumerians, and we have so many other subsets of Jewish belief systems back then when it came to religion. Even when the Lord encountered a woman at the well, he told her, you Samaritans, us Jews worship who we do know, and y'all Samaritans worship who y'all don't know. But nonetheless, they still had some of the same similar beliefs. So it's the same thing, man, with today's time and this white church versus black church. I don't believe in it, but I definitely want to time in on this conversation. But before we time in on this conversation, you already know, smash up the like button. It helps the algorithm push this out, in these algorithm streets, help us get get on the front page, and people come check us out. Make sure you share this out to a friend, tell a friend who will tell a friend who will tell a next of kin. Your boy St. Reese is back at it again. So without further ado, man, I'm gonna hit a few points and I'm gonna bring it in the Bible. Y'all already know we're gonna bring it in the Bible. And this is no shade to Cory. That's my brother. I've never met him before, never had a conversation with him before, but I do respect his intellect when it comes to Bible literacy. And y'all know I'm Gutta and Saint. I keep it Gutta I'm in the Bible streets too, just like Cory. You know, I'm into them scriptures too, and rightly dividing the word and all that stuff. Y'all see how I get down on my page, but I keep it a little gutter. We don't do the conservative stuff. I'll leave the conservative stuff to the conservatives and the ones who's proper. You know what I mean? Y'all leave the gutter to me. I'm aiming for a different demographic of people. You know what I mean? So I'm speaking the language of the streets just so they can understand the gospel in the street terms, but keep it all the way Bible. You know what I mean? But I see a few of y'all in here. As y'all come in, smash up the like button, share this out to a friend, man. And let's hop right into this discussion with Cory Minor and two other brothers, particularly the brother all the way on the left. They was having a discussion on this whole thing, you know, the effects of the white church. And I believe, in my honest opinion, Cory, I believe you was being very, very disingenuous. Now, I believe I'm in my mid-40s, but I believe I'm younger than a lot of these two. But I love history. I am a history buff, so I believe a lot of stuff in this conversation was left out. Now, I don't know if it was done intentionally to push a narrative or it was just done out of ignorance. I don't know, but I'm here to will it in. I'm here to bring into context what these brothers' discussion was about so we all can have a decent understanding of what happened. Again, I don't know if they did it out of ignorance or I don't know if it was done intentionally, but nonetheless, that's what y'all got me here for. So let's get into it.
Session on it was the black church versus biblical truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of times, to me, you come across as though, you know, you're giving one side of the story and not like the whole perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you believe that the Western church, you know, air quotes, white church, Western church, has anything to do with the condition of the quote black church, end quote? You know,
I think
theology and all
I see
of
what you're
that.
saying. I think that the white church bears maybe some guilt in some of the things that were done to the black Christians, and you'll see where I'm going in a second. But also,
yeah, you gotta elaborate on that, because what guilt are you talking about? The guilt of the trauma that they have done, like the trauma of them burning down black churches. Remember when the four little young ladies when they Molotov cocktail that church and them four little young ladies burnt in the basement while at during the Sunday school service, and all the countless other churches that they burnt down, you know, and did some of the most egregious stuff to ministers, believers in Christ, including Dr. Martin Luther King. So that needs to be unpacked, because the guilt and the shame that they bear is the guilt and the shame that they caused. If that's the angle you're taking. But I don't believe you're taking that angle. The angle you taking is to sympathize, with sympathy and empathy should be in its place, but also correction should also be in its place, Cory. Now let's keep on grounding.
the white church also bears some thanks for liberating. And hell, we would still be enslaved if it weren't for some whites, right? The abolitionist movement was a Christian movement. But when I say the white church who bears responsibility, which of them are alive? Which one bears that responsibility? Who do we go to and say, you yourself, sir, are the ones that are indebted to me because of what you've done?
Now, let me tell you why that's a disingenuous question. Because we know every black Christian during that time had to go through a white institution or a white pastor to even get anything started. A lot of black churches that was started, you know, they grounded. I believe it was the Lord first. And secondly, you know, those people in that community have to jump through many hoops just to even get funding to build that church. We know that historically, and a lot of those churches, was funded by white organizations such as the Southern Baptist Convention and all the Lutherans and the Pentecostals and all these conventions, which were spearheaded by nothing but white people. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of those black preachers cannot preach outside the confounds of what those white preachers or organizations allowed them to preach. That's why you didn't see a lot of preachers preaching on social justice. They had to go underground to the Black Panther Party. They had to go underground to the Civil Rights Movement, the NAACP, and all these other groups. A lot of these, because you got to remember, a lot of those people that was in those organizations were pastors, so they had to go underground to try to get a point across. And ultimately, even when Dr. King, who was a brother in Christ, he look at the hoops he had to go through in the marches he had to go through, and they deemed him public enemy number one. They deemed him as a devil. Cory, come on, Cory, you know this. You too old to be sounding like this, Cory.
The place that we find ourselves is not because of where we were 30 years ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. No, where we find ourselves, the state of the black Christian, the black church today. And I know we don't.
Yeah, the reason why we find ourselves in the state we in now is because of the effects of what happened then. There's a cause and an effect. You know that. You know that's even like with faith. I use me for example, right? Contrary to popular belief, I came into the Lord under Joel Osteen. Well, a couple other people played a part in that process, but ultimately, Joel Osteen played a part in me coming to the Lord, high and drunk, watching him 2:00 in the morning, coming in the house all high and drunk. Now, I don't follow him now because I have progressed. The Lord has progressed me. You see what I'm saying? So the cause of me coming into the faith was Joel Osteen. The effect of me where I'm at now is because of Christ. Now that could have had an adverse effect. Watch this. Joel Osteen could have been affected to where I'm at now. I could still be I've been in the Lord about 20 years now. I could probably be one of them smiley, naive Christians right now. And still be where I was when I got saved almost 20 years ago because of the ministry I done came under, which was Joel Osteen. I'm not a Joel Osteen follower now. That's not my level of, where I'm at now. But what if I would have stayed there, which a lot of people is still in his ministry, they got saved 20, 30 years ago and still in that same state. It's the same thing. It's a cause and effect where the black Christianity is at now as a whole, as a collective, is because of the effect of what those white preachers and white churches have done.
We shouldn't be talking about a black church or white church, Hispanic church, but we know what we mean. The condition that we find ourselves in, by and large, is a condition of our own making. So where we see sometimes the foolishness that we see in some of our, let's be honest. So when we look at some of these video clips of what's happening, how often is it us?
And I agree. Up until recently, who was the starter of this whole laughing, this falling out in the Holy Ghost, and laughing and all that stuff? Yeah, who started this whole prosperity gospel that we see in the black churches? Come on. You want me to go on? Who started all this prophesying and prophecy and God this and God that? Where you think all these black pastors is getting it from? All this new age teaching that is running rampant in the so-called black churches. Where are these black preachers getting it from? The deliverance ministry. They come off the back of Wigglesworth and what's Kenneth Copeland and Kenneth Hagin and Hagee and all Catherine Kuhlman and all these people. See, that's what I'm saying. You gotta get to the root of things. Now, and I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure you all know that.
When we see some of the things, now I'm not saying that white folks and Hispanic folks and Asian folks don't do crazy. They do. They do. They are just as we say, throw it off as we are. But we can't hold someone else accountable for what we are responsible for ourselves. And so in what way do you think that they?
And I'm gonna get into that in just a second, y'all, because we actually see a form of that in the Bible with the children of Israel and Pharaoh. We actually, what he just said, we actually see an image of that with the story of Pharaoh, with the story of Moses, Pharaoh, and the children of Israel. So you're being disingenuous again, but we're gonna get to that in just a second.
They are responsible. So I'll go back and give it to you. What way do you think that white folks or the white church is responsible?
Well, the way that I look at it, Cory, is that through, slavery and Jim Crow and all those things and segregation.
And by the way, let me say this. I'm not pro-black. I am not pro nobody. I'm pro Christ. That's it. I'm pro Christ, but I'm obligated to tell the truth. No matter if you agree with it or disagree with it, because I see one of y'all done gave me a thumbs down. I'm obligated to truth, whether you like it or not. I'm not pro-black, but I'm going to tell the truth that we all know. We all know this truth. Just because you choose to stay ignorant, you got a God to stay. You got a God to stand towards. Because on that, if you want to choose to ignore the truth that's right in front of your eyes, we know the cause and effect of a lot of stuff of where the black people at in the condition in the conditions black people are in right now. We know it. They knew. As a matter of fact, let me tell you how they knew the outcome. You can actually read that in the Willie Lynch letters. Now I know a lot of y'all may not agree or may not believe in the Willie Lynch letters, but here's the fact of the matter: the principles that's in the Willie Lynch letters, you can actually see them play out today. Yeah. Whether you believe the Willie Lynch letters is fact or fiction, the principles you can see the effects of the principles being applied and how they are affecting the black community for the benefit of white people. You ain't gotta like the truth that I'm telling, but it's the truth.
It created an atmosphere where the black church obviously feeling separate and left out of the religious, the authoritative religious group, as well as in society in many ways, kind of gave room for the preachers to have that sort of mindset where, if I'm preaching to a people that I'm trying to serve God and give them the word, I'm going to, by definition, speak to many of the social ills as well. Not like in a liberation theology way, but I am going to speak to those kinds of situations that we have in common that we're going through. And it just
and what he's saying is true, because here's the fact of the matter. Every time black people get to talking about the things that affect the black community, particularly here in America, they create all these labels: social justice theology and what's that, CRT, whatever, all the stuff that all the labels that they create. But when other people start talking about the stuff that plague their community, they're speaking up for justice. They're speaking up for righteousness. Y'all see the mindset they put us in? They put us in this mindset. You ain't gotta like what I'm saying, but it's the truth. Black people are the only people that we can't take up for ourselves without it being demonized. And then they try to say that, oh, what's the term that they use? You're weak, or you got to pull yourself up. You got to pull yourself up by the bootstrap, and all the other terms that they use. And you're complaining and stuff like that. No, for one, the Lord has blessed me beyond my wildest dreams. I have no reason to complain. But however, I'm going to tell the truth, whether you like it or not. I see a few of y'all in here. Make sure y'all smash up the thumbs up button.
It seems to me that that's a disservice to overlook that. It is something that is pervasive today. Yes,
is it the same as? But would you say there's a difference between overlooking and highlighting?
Well, if you overlook it, if you're not highlighting it, it just seems as though you're overlooking it.
So if I don't, but in the Bible, there are people that have gone through a great many things, right? And
Sure.
that could be a testimony, but to sit and stay on that. Okay, so what should the white church do, or what should we not do? What?
All right. Now that's what he's right. There is in the Bible, there's people, a group of people who endured great many things. Now we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that plagued the black community. And then matter of fact, you know what? I ain't even gonna get into that. I ain't gonna get into that right now. We're gonna talk about all the stuff because he just brought up the Bible. Now we're gonna break it down. The children of Israel with Pharaoh and Moses. Now, like the
What
children,
should we not be responsible?
Hold on. I don't want to play that just yet. But let's break down them scriptures right quick. Like the children of Israel, right? Who labored under Pharaoh's yoke, under Pharaoh's bondage. The systemic burden weighed upon the people of Israel, just like it's weighing upon the black community right now. You do know that, right, Cory? You know, the black community cannot be reduced to the matters of individual choice alone. An individual cannot just do this alone, Cory, because I know Cory's about to get into how, black fathers and this, that, and the third. But before he get into that, I'm going to lay the foundation of how we can correlate this with the children of Israel. Just as Pharaoh created systems of oppression and suppression for the children of Israel, from forced labor to unaliving their firstborn sons and all that stuff, just like today's challenge, today's challenges stems from generational structures of hardship, just like Pharaoh. The people who created Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger and them, that affect the black community for years. Now, a lot of people can say, well, those black people didn't have to go get those abortions. But look how they mask it. They mask it under healthcare. In order for black people to get healthcare back then, they had to go through Planned Parenthood. That was their little thing that they waved over black people. And then in that, they indoctrinated black people in while they was getting their health care. They were lied to. I was a victim of that. They lied to my wife with my first son and tried to say he was going to be born with Down syndrome. She need to get an abortion. They was pushing hard for them to abort. Now, we didn't abort him, and he came out just fine. My oldest son. These are the stuff that they used to tell black people all the time. So black people would get abortions. Now, yes, there was some that used it poorly because of their own poor decisions. Yes. But for the most part, it was due to the lack of health care and resources that black people had. Now, watch this. When Moses confronted Pharaoh, I know I preach this to the choir because I know a lot of y'all know these stories. He didn't merely tell the Israelites to work harder under Pharaoh. He didn't tell the Israelites to comply to Egypt. He didn't tell the Israelites to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and stop being lazy and stop complaining because you're living in the most prosperous Egyptian country in the world. He didn't tell them that. Moses stood up and told Pharaoh, "Hey, bruh, you wilding out over here. You treating these people poorly. You treating these people bad." Moses didn't complain. Moses didn't go back to the people and tell them, y'all should be thankful for being in Egypt, the most prosperous land in the world. God has blessed this land. God bless Egypt. That's what y'all do. That's what, Cory, that's how a lot of y'all sound when y'all try to deflect and put the responsibility back on black men and black people and black women as if we caused this. Come on, Cory. You know this. Moses, he understood that their bondage was built in the fabric of the Egyptians. Yeah. Moses understood that, just like you should understand that. Cory, you're my brother. I'm only telling you this in love. Moses understood that their bondage was built into the fabric of the Egyptian society. Similarly, how we see black people today. Our culture built this whole America that you see. That's why they promised us 40 acres and a mule off the free labor of your people. And then out of that, I ain't gonna get too deep into that. I'm not gonna get too deep into that. All I'm gonna say is the more we work, the stronger they put the chains on your brothers. Watch this. America put generations of oppression on black people. Watch this. We about to bring this into the scriptures. As the Israelites endured slavery for 400 years, so too has the black community in here in America. And we was in bondage. Now, I know different people say it's almost 400 years. Some people less than 400. However you spin it. The fact of the matter is black people has been in bondage to America and white folk for centuries. Centuries of bondage. Now watch this. Jim Crow laws, and the ongoing discrimination, segregation, and all that stuff. All that stuff is still very much strong in America. It's subtle. It's covert, but it's there. Black people has been restricted to access and resources, just like the Israelites. During that time, they were denied fullness of Egypt's prosperity, despite building its cities, despite building all the stuff that we get to enjoy and they got to enjoy during that time. The Israelites couldn't even. They was a part of the country. They were citizens, but they couldn't enjoy it to its fullest. I'm sure the Egyptians tried to go to school with them. I'm sure. Listen, they kept the fathers working day and night because Cory about to harken on this. So this whole fathers thing in Egypt, I'm sure they kept the fathers working on the pyramids and doing this stuff so much. And if they didn't work, they put them in prison. They unalived the boy. They did all this stuff. And back then, those women back then, the dads wasn't in the house. We bringing this all in the scriptures because history does repeat itself. It's nothing new under the sun. Many, just like those Israelites, many black communities face limited access to quality education, quality healthcare, and quality economics. Yes, they had jobs nonetheless, but it was very predatory. It was very limited. Now I know some of y'all gonna say, well, what about today? Yes, there is residue of it today. Now I would agree that there's no excuse for a lot of black people today because we're living in the most advanced time. There's a lot of things we could do, but we got to talk about the cause and effects of a lot of stuff that's happening. That happened because that's what this conversation is talking about. What happened back then? They deconstructed. The family bond. Yeah, they deconstructed the family bond. Watch this. As Pharaoh sought to destroy Hebrew families by drowning their sons, there was a mass incarceration back then because when they incarcerated those dudes back then, they could use them as free labor back then. That was their economics. Come on, Cory, you know this. You know the scriptures. You know the historical nature of the scriptures back in those Egyptian times, and we can see a pattern of that. A pattern of that all through the scriptures. Yes. So at the end of the day, listen, and here's the funny thing: even after Moses freed them, the people of Israel. Well, God freed the people of Israel through Moses, and they started going through hard times in the wilderness. They even wanted to go back in Egypt because they felt like they had it better there. Sound like black people, don't it? Sound like black people. Yes, the welfare, they gave black people welfare. After After they gave after the civil rights movement, who got all the corporate jobs? White women. White women. Out of that, those white women gave black women welfare. And now you ask, why did those black women take welfare? Because they had no choice. They couldn't get jobs. They wasn't educated. They straight out of Jim Crow. They had to fight. We know our sister Ruby, who had and all the other black people that remain nameless, and they wouldn't even allow us to go to school with them. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. This conversation is very disingenuous. There's a lot of obstacles back then. Yes, the families was together back then because the black man didn't have nothing else to do. They couldn't get them big factory jobs or a lot of those jobs like a lot of their white counterparts. And here's the funny thing: a lot of those white counterparts wasn't even educated. They got jobs because of the proximity of who they are or who they was. They wasn't educated. They wasn't getting all the education. They were just getting those factory jobs and all those car making jobs and the mining jobs and all that stuff because at the end of the day they was white. So yes, the black family was more together then because there wasn't many opportunity for these men to go out and work. That's why I said this conversation is very disingenuous. Y'all smash up the like button. Let me get to some of these comments real quick. The Lord chose and called Moses to go lead his people out of Egypt. Moses did not take up his own. In fact, he didn't think. Right. But why did God choose Moses? Because God heard the cries of his people. They were suffering. God heard the cries of his people. He rose up Moses, told Moses to go to Pharaoh to tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Get them out of bondage. And again, Moses didn't go to the people of Israel and tell them to work harder, to pull themselves up by the bootstrap. Stop complaining. You should appreciate being in Egypt. Like a lot of Christians say, you should appreciate being in America. This is the best America in the world. This is the most freest country in the world. Moses could have said that about the Egyptians because Egypt during that time was the most thriving. Egypt was probably better than America. Come on. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So when Cory is saying that, it's the black people's fault. No, that's like saying it was the children of Israel's fault for trying to get ahead, but they was under the yoke and the bondage of Pharaoh. Come on, if we're going to have this conversation, Cory, we got to have this conversation all the way. Because I get what you're trying to say. It just like the children of Israel. You could have said, how come they didn't go to school with the Egyptians? How come they didn't do this with the Egyptians? Those Egyptians, their households was thriving. Their house, those men was with their women. Those men was raising their kids. Those Israelite men didn't have no choice but to work day and night, because if they didn't, what Pharaoh would do, he would find a reason to put a charge on them, put them in jail, just like they did with black people. The moment after emancipation, they put in loitering laws, knowing that those black people ain't had nowhere to go. So what they did was arrest them for loitering. Hence, putting them in jail, instead of using the term slavery, they used state property, gave them a number, and sent them right on the railroads. Sent them to build infrastructures. Yeah. Who's the problem in there? Oh my goodness gracious. Hold on, let me get to some more of these comments because we're gonna finish. Hey man, I need y'all to smash up look, I should have more than one like. I'm preaching better than y'all smashing up the like button. All races feel like they suffered from whites. They have status. Listen, this is not beating up white folk, because here's the fact of the matter. Pharaoh was I don't want to use black, because during those times the term black wasn't It wasn't conditioned upon a person's skin color. But Pharaoh was a man of color. Pharaoh was a man of color. So we talking about oppression. Now, Pharaoh did it in that time. White people was doing it in this time. Whether you want to call them Germans, whatever they are, they white. They white people. Black people did it back then, for the lack of better words, with Moses and not with Moses, but with Pharaoh. White people was doing it in this time. So at the end of the day, we can't spin this. We can't hop over this, because one day this is going to be history. One day this is going to be history. All right, let's see. So here's the thing. Yes, white folk has played a major part in a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not going to play the whole video. Y'all can go watch Cory's whole video. But watch this. We're going to talk about right after the civil rights and all that stuff, right? Right after that, white women got all the corporate jobs, right? Watch this. Look at the timeline here. Corporate America started hiring some black people who fought tooth and nail to go to college, because they wasn't allowing black people to get into school, because all this stuff was systemic. Because here's the fact of the matter: they didn't want us to go to school with them, and then they put limited resources in the black school. Black schools had to fight tooth and nail just to get resources for the schools. Hence, why a lot of those schools either going down or just passing kids through. They had to pass kids through the school system with limited education, because they had to get the kids out, because new kids was coming in. I'm a victim of that growing up in Philadelphia. I'm a victim of that. Passed through the whole school system without understanding how to read. Now, by the grace of God, I taught myself how to read and comprehend and do all that stuff, because I had the willingness to learn. But what about the people who don't have the willingness to learn? You see what I'm saying? This stuff was systemically happening from the top down, and it affected the black community, Cory. Now watch this. Watch this, Cory. I'm gonna give you a timeline here. Right after the civil rights and all that stuff, white women got all the corporate jobs in the 70s. Late 70s, they started putting drugs in the black communities. Crack cocaine. Now, mind you, the powder, I don't want to say the name. The powder stuff was already around flooding the white community. That was an expensive drug. That was the rich people drugs. The powder. The hard rock was the poor people drug. They put the hard rock in the black community. Ravaged the black community. Ravaged the black man and woman who was the working class woman. My parents was a victim of the crack epidemic. A lot of my friends' parents was a victim to the crack epidemic. Tore the black community up. Who did that come from, Cory? That didn't come from black people. Now, somebody might say, well, they had a choice. They had a choice with the smoke, and everybody was doing drugs then. Here's the difference between those people, white people and black people, right? The system worked for them, because it's like an entitled kid. An entitled kid feel like they can do what they want, when they want, and how they want at any given time. Black people wasn't afforded that privilege. So these people was functioning drug addicts. Black people wasn't functioning drug addicts. They was predatory drug addicts. They was. Now, and that was something that hit our community unlike no other. Now watch this. Prior to drugs, guess what white people was peddling? Moonshine and alcohol all through their communities. Illegal alcohol was being pushed all through the white communities. How come those people didn't go to jail? Why they didn't put those people in jail? We know how big the alcohol get, and then it got so big where these white folk kept on getting caught with it illegal that they made it legal. Come on, Cory. That's why you got to have me on your show so we can talk this stuff. Because I'm not going to let you, like you were doing this, brother, y'all was jumping from question to question. And I don't like that, because when you jump from question to question to question to question and you never get one thing covered. I don't like that. Is it we're going to cover this or we're not? We're not going to be jumping all over the place. And we're going to address the single home fathers. But let me get back into the drug epidemic ravaged the black community. Now you might say, well, why was these black people selling the drugs? Good question. Good question. Black, for one, there were no jobs. Back then, you needed a resume to get hired at McDonald's. McDonald's wasn't hiring black people. You needed a resume to do just the average job because of the illiteracy rate and the poor schooling. Black people didn't know how to do the basic functions that we now know how to do. So they wasn't getting hired. So when you see a dude making $1,000 a night selling drugs, that's very enticing when you living in a impoverished community. I don't care who you are. When you're in, you could put drugs in any poverty-stricken community, whether you're black or white, people is going to sell drugs. You can go listen. In a lot of these white communities that's very poor, there's a lot of drug activity going on. Now, the difference between their community and our community, the black community is over-policed. The white communities aren't. So they get away with a lot of stuff. Now, watch this. Even during that time, these black men was getting their drugs from white men by the boatloads. How you think they was able to get that amount of drugs into the black community? That was no black man doing. And then it was your own government. It was the government that was putting these drugs in the community because they knew the effects. Wow. Watch this, Cory. Watch this. Wow. Building privatized prisons. And then in the media, they was painting a narrative calling black people super predators, super thugs, super criminals. These were the titles that they were using during those days. So they was building a narrative, building the prison, laying out the food. So they built the prisons in the late 80s. Started locking black people up. And then they put that 94 crime bill in. I'm fast forwarding through a lot of stuff because I don't want to be all day because we could break down details and all that stuff if I get invited to the show. And then the 94 crime bill, they started putting everybody in jail. Now watch this. I was in high school then, in the early 90s. I was in high school. The cops used to torture us. Growing up in Philly, they had Operation Livestock where they can stop you for no reason and search you and magically find drugs. Yeah, that's what they was doing. So that's why we always had to run from the police. I watched so many of my friends go to jail. The cop found drugs on them, right? Mom could not pay a lawyer, so they had to get a public defender. Every public defender at that time told every black man to cop a plea. That plea deal was a felony. Reduced time. He would probably only have to do 6 months to a year in prison, and then he'd be on 5 to 10 years probation for minor drug charges. I'm taking y'all somewhere. Y'all got to follow me. For minor drug charges. He get out within that 6 months. Being as though he's a felon, because they created felons. This is what they created felons. He get out, can't find a job because now he's his word felon. Because remember, during that time, didn't nobody really know what a felon was. Because black people wasn't used to that at that time. Now he's a felon, can't get a job. So what do he do by default? Sell drugs. You become a product of your environment, Cory. Now I'm breaking this down, and I'm sure, Cory, I know you've been to prison. You said you've been around. You heard these stories. And the list can go on. These people are 10 steps ahead of us already. We are under true bondage. Now, here's the thing. Where we at now in history, I don't believe that there's an excuse. I don't. There is no excuse now. I do believe the bondage and the suppression is still here, but now black people can have the liberty to do what we need to do to build our own. There's no excuse now. So I'm going to agree with you on that. There is no excuse now. Hold on. I watched it and I feel like he didn't. let his guest finish. Yeah, right. He didn't. And Cory, that's my brother. I rock with Cory. It's, you know what I mean? This is no slight. And also, watch this. And another thing he skipped over, right? Let's talk about the Southern Baptist Convention and all these Christian institutes where black preachers had to get up under these white preachers in order to preach. I'm gonna use my mentor, Dr. Tony Evans, and I believe Cory was under Dr. Tony Evans for a point in time. Dr. Tony Evans was the first black man, and I believe the last black man to get the type of doctorate he got at Dallas Seminary, right? Dr. Tony Evans had to go through another brother, I forget his name, a white brother, in Christ, to get on the radio. Dr. Tony Evans and many other black preachers, prominent preachers, had to jump through so many hoops just to get on TBN, Daystar, and all these other Christian networks who were spearheaded by white people. They would not, these radio stations, these networks would not let black preachers on their stations. That's the effect. That is the effect that a lot of these Christians, white churches had on black people. That's part of the effect. That's why I said I believe Cory was being disingenuous, because I'm sure he heard Dr. Tony Evans tell that story. You see what I'm saying? But I don't want to be too long. I just wanted to touch on that. Here's the thing, man. Listen, slavery, Jim Crow laws, ongoing discriminations, in housing. Oh man, I ain't even touch on redlining. Man, go watch. It's a documentary called The 13th. I dare y'all to go watch that. Redlining was so bad. Black people who can afford to buy houses, they would not give those black people those houses because those white people didn't want black people to live in their neighborhoods. Even your favorite black pastors, who was very prominent. Employment and the criminal justice system has created legacies of disadvantages that continue to affect the black community today. Yeah. Lack of access of resources, limited access to quality education, healthcare, and economical opportunities contribute to the disproportionate poverty and hardship that black people is experiencing and has experienced. Come on. Watch this, man. I believe Cory overlooked the complexities and the realities of black families here in America, in the pressure that black people face, even his brothers in Christ. That's why I said, bro, I believe, Cory, you was being very disingenuous. And then the stuff that you said about black fathers, as if, because I'm gonna play that clip real quick, as if you don't know that was systemically done by putting all those black men in jail. Prior to the 60s, the late 60s, 70s, and the 80s, prior to those years, black men has always been present fathers. I mean, they have no choice, because we had no choice but to be together because of the systemic oppressions and suppressions that was happening to black people during that time. You had no choice. And then after the civil rights and all this stuff happened, and they wanted to give us jobs, they had to control us again. So they like, how can we control them? We're gonna put drugs in their communities. We're gonna put them in, we're gonna create prisons, and we're gonna turn a lot of those Negroes to prisoners, which in under the 13th Amendment, state property. Read the 13th Amendment, and then in essence putting them back into slavery, because once you are a felon, you're a slave, because it's hard to climb out of that. But anyway, let's finish watching this, and I'm gonna get to y'all comments in just a second. Let's finish watching some of this, and then we're gonna hop back into it.
Responsible to do because of the past. What standard would we say is lower because of what happened in the past?
What standard is lower?
Yeah. Such as fathers being home with your children. marrying the mother of your child, not getting in trouble, those sort of things.
When you mention things like that, fathers being home with your children,
Again, that's disingenuous. That's disingenuous. For one, a lot of people have kids. Not only black people have kids young. Even a lot of white folk, they wasn't marrying then. Yes, they eventually did get married. But even with black people, getting married during that time was very hard systemically. And then the same America you love, Cory, with the welfare system, and you can't blame black women for taking welfare because they ain't have nothing else. What else were they going to do? They were supposed to take welfare. I believe they were supposed to take welfare. Now, it did become, I believe that these people knew that it was going to create them to be enabled there's going to be enabled on welfare. They was going to be, they was going to end up being complacent with having welfare, and those people knew that. Because they needed those people to stay trapped. They needed those black women and those black women to stay where they're at because they didn't want those black people to elevate above them. They didn't want black people in their neighborhoods. So you give them welfare, you put drugs in their community, put them in jail, trap them in like rats, give the women welfare, trap them in like rats in their own little projects and all that stuff, because that's going to keep them out of our neighborhoods. Come on, Cory. You know that. I'm younger than y'all, and I know this. And again, I'm not pro-black. I'm not pro-nothing. I'm pro-Christ. Whatever Christ is, that's what I am. He's the son of God. I'm not pro-black, but I'm obligated to tell the truth. I'm obligated to tell the truth. All right. Yeah, that's my dog. I like. Yeah, of course. Oh yeah. I rock with Cory. That's my dog, man. That's my dog, man. Oh yeah. Oh, Pastor Ray, that's my dog too, man. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, both Cory Minor at the Smart Christian channel and Ray and brother Ray over there at the Unction, they both my brothers. They both my brothers. I mean, this is I'm not coming at Cory. I just believe he was being disingenuous on this particular conversation where there's a lot of stuff that could have been broken down very on a simple term, but maybe he's speaking out of his experience and where he grew up at. Growing up on the East Coast, and particularly in Philadelphia, our reality is totally different. Now, I'm sure where I grew up at is no different than any other hood. I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia, but I can tell you one thing, because watching Boys in the Hood, you see them same things that happen in California. I live here in Atlanta now, and, people say the same thing happened here in Atlanta. So different things plague different black communities. And then, and I believe he's being disingenuous with the black fathers. Listen, again, prior to the late 70s, black fathers was in there, and then you got to look at all the stuff that happened in between the late. I'm gonna just say the 70s. From 1970 on to the 90s. Look at all the obstacles that they put in black people on black people's paths that we had to jump over, which was very hard. Which was very, 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 very hard. The drugs, the welfare, and the privatized prisons, the redlining, trying to get the proper school resources, trying to get the proper business loans to start businesses. There's a list of things that we could talk about that there was an obstacle for black people to get where it was just given to them. Now you could talk about credit. I'm a financial advisor. That's what I do by day. That's that. I work for a private bank. Getting credit and resources and to build is some people can get it like that. Us black people got to make sure you got everything plus more to even get pre-qualified. Now, I'm not saying that's the where I work at. That's the way it does. No, I'm not saying that's the way it work where I work at. No, but we talking about what happened back then. We're talking about what happened back then during those times when when it was really very, very hard for Black people to even get a little small portion of what other people got just like that, just because of the color of their skin.
Those are systemic issues in the Black community, but it's the black men are and Spanish men are the most involved in their children's lives than
How?
any other ethnic group.
I saw that report.
They may not be in the home, but they're most involved.
But here's the.
So that was a narrative that they painted, that the so-called Black dad didn't want to take care of their kids. When in order, one of the criteria to get qualified for subsidized housing, right? When you're on welfare, was your husband or your baby father could not stay in the house. Hence, the reason why he either had to stay with his mom or be out there in the streets. He could not stay with his mom. Now, again, I was a victim of that. My wife, when we was early in our relationship in the early 90s, not early 90s, late 90s, when she was in school and I was in school doing my thing, we did have 2 kids. She wasn't getting welfare, but she got approved for subsidized housing. We lived in the projects. I couldn't stay there. Of course, I went there. Of course, I stayed the night, but I couldn't live there. That couldn't be my address. Because in order for her to keep that subsidized voucher, I wasn't supposed to be there. Now, that could have created, I could say could have, it did create a division. It created a division. Now, my wife and I, we're still together almost 30 years later. We will be celebrating 30 years this February. Yeah, we're in February, in the middle of February. I can't say I'm one of the very few, by God's grace, who made it. Who overcame a lot of those obstacles. One of very few who overcame a lot of those obstacles. I'm sure during the time in Egypt, it was some Israelites who wasn't as poor or who wasn't as oppressed and suppressed as the mass majority of the Egyptians back in those days. Y'all see where I'm going? Although I was working hard, my wife she was my girlfriend at the time. We was working hard to make better for ourselves. The mass majority of us wasn't, because the resources, we didn't have any resources neither, but we was figuring it out as we was going along. Some people just don't have that tenacity, that willingness, and it shouldn't even be that hard to try to even get ahead. And so many obstacles was put on our path. Let me finish. Let's finish this up.
The question, and I saw that report, and the first thing that stuck out to me, first of all, it was a survey. There's no way to actually go and measure that. There's no way. But let me ask you a question. If I've got 2 children, 8 hours, 24 hours a day. I've got to work 8 hours. So just by being home.
Sure, I agree. But to be home, you have to have an agreement with the wife.
Don't sleep with her before then, though. That's all. Don't get her.
And that's disingenuous too. Now, I agree. We should not be out here fornicating, but that's just not reality, Cory. Every group of people is out here sleeping around and having kids young out of wedlock. It's just not Black people, Cory. Come on, Cory. You're using their talking points, because here's the thing. You want to know a harsh reality? There is more single mom white women than there is Black women. You do know that, right? Because white women during that time and even currently have Black women outnumbered per person. Although the numbers look disingenuous when they do by rate, but by person, white women is more single has more single motherhood than black women, and which would mean there's more single fathers, white single fathers, than there is black single fathers. And oh, by the way, there's more white people on welfare than it is black women. Huh? Yeah. Again, when you look at the rates, anything in a smaller number, when you do by rate, the number is always going to look greater. But if you break it down per person, you will see the real numbers. And I'm sure you know that. I'm sure you know that, Cory. But yeah, black fatherhood during that time was broken down intentionally. But yeah. Let me get to some of these comments. I see what you're saying, but that was the exception, not the rule. That was the exception, not the rule. We can't say that. We can't say that. It's multi-level. There's a lot of things that are taking place. Anybody, if a man can't be with his family and he's out in the streets, or he get to live, it's systemically, if that's systemically done, what you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? It's going to cause division. It's going to cause strife. I don't know if you married, but if the government was to tell you that you can't live with your wife or your husband no more, what you think is going to happen to your relationship? Not only are your kids going to be estranged, you're going to be estranged from your wife. There's a cause and effect for everything. We got to look at the big picture. And I don't like to use that word discernment, because a lot of people who say they have discernment don't have discernment. But in this situation, this calls for wisdom, and just sit back and just analyze. Just think before you talk. Like, I think about this. I sit back and I think, I'm like, dang, yeah, a lot of stuff didn't happen. A lot of stuff done taken place. There's a lot of in-betweens that needs to be discussed when we having these type of conversations. In my honest opinion. But we're going to listen to a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to wrap it up, y'all.
You're pregnant.
Well,
white man did not pull your pants.
Hold on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Men do not have sex with women against their wishes. So you can't put that on men. You put that on women.
Yeah, no, I put it on men.
Women, you can't have sex with a woman unless she gives consent.
Oh, no. My point though, in most relationships, now I know things might be changing, whatever, but who do you think is probably leading this? In many cases, probably the man. But the point is, guess what? Who does God hold you responsible? Since we're talking about the church, we're talking about black men who are Christians. Who is God going to hold the most responsible for? And so she didn't grab you, just like she didn't just like someone didn't grab you, make you have sex with that woman. I get it. It's a man and a woman. Both of them have to be mature and not do these foolish things. I'm not harping against someone. We've all messed up or whatever, but that's not someone else's fault or responsibility. Just like it's nobody that caused this man to have another child. So because most men have more than one child. So now,
on a black man or a man, period, when women cannot get pregnant unless they give consent. So how is this
but the same
right here? This is all semantics. This is, we're gonna skip past this part. This is all semantics right here. It is what it is. Everybody, it ain't just black men. Everybody out here having sex with women that they not married to, and it's not just black men. Like I said, almost, yes, back then a lot of white men and white women was getting married, but most of those white men and white women is on their third and fourth marriage. They got divorced 3 and 4 times. So just because a lot of those, they created broken families when they got divorced. Why do you think the divorce rate is at what, 80 something percent? If black people aren't marrying at a higher rate than these other cultures, but these other cultures are getting married and they getting divorced and they getting married again and they getting divorced. They on their third and fourth marriage, hence creating broken families as well. Well, we need to talk about that as well. A broken family is a broken family, whether that person didn't marry that woman or if that man divorced that woman. So we need to cover all bases. That's what I'm saying. This conversation is very disingenuous. Or maybe they just needed to talk a little bit more to unpack it a little bit more. But that's why I'm here. I'm here to unpack it a little bit.
Same dynamics, the same biology.
20% to 25% of black men are married.
Okay.
So you're looking at 51, 25, and then you have also like gay men and incarcerated men and all of that. So what you're really looking at is about 8 to 12% of the men who are responsible for having children out of wedlock.
Outside of that study that you,
that's what I'm saying. Stuff like that doesn't matter. That's semantics. It's semantics. You can play semantics with stats and statistics with somebody, because for one, those people didn't survey all men. I've never gotten a survey. How many of y'all gotten a survey before? I've never gotten a survey to do anything. So some of these statistics that they come up, they probably got 100 men in their office building and surveyed them and then call it a stat on the rest of the world. I don't really go none of them stats. So, again, that's semantics.
At the bottom rung. Why?
Why? Because of us? Because of what we do?
Yes.
So it has nothing.
Or too hard on men. Yep. For a good reason. If you are going to look for someone else to blame or to bail you out, you will go absolutely nowhere. Think about it. Think about this question. Where are we in every social economic metric? Where are we? We are at the bottom rung. Why?
Why? Because of us? Because of what we do?
Yes.
Now, I disagree. I agree and I disagree to some extent. In today's time, we're trying our best, but there's still so many obstacles, and these people done ran 30 laps around us already. So catching up to what they got going on is never going to happen. The only way it's going to happen if God give us a hard reset or Jesus come back. That's the only way it's going to happen. Other than that, we're not catching up to none of these people. Back then, in the conditions we were in then, I believe they play a part in where we at now. And now it's like a runaway train. Once you get it in motion and the brakes go out, it's a runaway train. The only thing that's going to stop that train is for it to derail. You see what I'm saying? So unfortunately, black people, the condition of black people were, we're going to either derail or, So yes, man, in this current day. But I believe that being as though these people are so far ahead of us that they probably putting in it's probably something else that we can't see that's holding us back. Our grandchildren, our grandchildren probably figure it out. I don't know. I don't see it because me personally, I'm gonna be honest. I don't feel oppressed. But I do understand how economics work. Excuse me. I do understand how economics work. I don't feel oppressed. Sometimes suppressed, but I don't feel oppressed. God has blessed me beyond my wildest dreams. But for me to say that oppression still doesn't exist would be disingenuous of me, because I do believe that in a lot of ways it still exists. I just don't know to what capacity. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to operate from the point of empathy and sympathy of those who are oppressed and suppressed. If I lived in the days of Egypt and with Pharaoh, and I was one of those Israelites
who was doing well, and my people wasn't. I'm going to have empathy and sympathy for them and identify with them just like Moses did. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, if y'all want to watch the rest of this video, y'all can go check this out at Cory Minor's channel. I'm not going to play no more, but I think I said all I had to say, hit all my points and all that stuff. Hey man, I thank y'all for rocking out with me. It's your boy St. Reese. This is another podcast of Gutta and Saint. This is actually the Rebuttal Live show, the Rebuttal Live. So this is where I rebuttal, something that I may disagree with, and I rebuttal it lovingly and all that stuff, man. But I appreciate y'all, man, for rocking out with me. Do something for the podcast. Today, go check out our merch store, which is going to be pinned down in the description area. We got some dope hoodies, dope sweatshirts, dope hats, t-shirts, and all that at gasmerch.com, which is going to be pinned down in the description area, man. I thank y'all for rocking out with me. And y'all already know my slogan. It's not about how much Bible you know, but it's about how much Bible you willing to obey, man. God willing, I see y'all on the flip. Peace.
When I was out there on the streets of Philly, it was do or die. But God is good all the time. I'm here for a reason. My name used to be Tech. I'm Mr. Gas now. That stands for Gutta and Saved.
Considered the greatest spitting. I tell them I'm Christ-like. They envision modern Christian. Tell them I'm nothing like check conditions. I'm living. I preach Christ. We ain't fake delivering. Listen. Candy man, soon as they. It's not about how much Bible chapter and verse you know. It's about how much Bible you willing to obey.
Okay, I'm reloaded.